YouTube canal, Vernon Stewart once again for Vernon Speaks Sports Auburn. On this channel, it's always great to be an Auburn Tiger. And on the loveliest village on the plains in East Alabama, the battle cry is War Eagle. College football 2019 is in full effect. The media days are starting to commence, especially for the SEC. And we're talking a little Auburn versus Oregon football today. The last time these two teams met was back in 2010 with all the stakes on the line for the national championship. Out in Glendale, Arizona, Oregon fought their way back into the ball game, really giving Cam Newton a lot of trouble with their shiftiness. They were very, very opportunistic in that game, even forced some fumbles in that game to keep themselves in it. And subsequently, Auburn wins that game 22-19. Fast forward about 10 years later, these two teams will meet again in the Advocare Classic at AT&T Stadium, Arlington, Texas. As it turns out, Game Day has decided that they want to make the trip down to Glendale, Arizona. I mean, not Glendale. I'm sorry, guys. They're going to make the trip down to Arlington, Texas as well. College football game day. ESPN will be on deck for that particular ball game. Also, TV outlets feels like that should be the primetime game of the day. ABC will be broadcasting that game starting at 6:30 Central Time, 7:30 Eastern Time, 4:30. I hope I got this right. I should have done some research, but hey, y'all know the deal. 4:30 Pacific Time for this particular game. We've talked a lot on this channel about the Auburn versus Oregon game. I feel like this is one of the more intriguing matchups in college football to begin the season. Number one, you have the Oregon Ducks who are coming off a very, very impressive recruiting class under Mario Cristobal, who is very familiar with the Southern style of football, as he was a offensive line coach down at Alabama. Actually has one of those coveted Alabama championship rings. Took the show up to Eugene, Oregon, with the departure of Willie Taggart, who goes down to Florida State and is now coaching as a Florida State Seminole. Coming into this year, now there's a lot of intriguing matchups to me. I really like the offensive line for Oregon versus the defensive line of Auburn and vice versa. I also like the fact that Justin Herbert, the quarterback for Oregon, making this return for his senior year, hoping to do some big things. Dark horse Heisman Trophy candidate. Also, Troy Dye actually has a lot of confidence coming back for the Oregon defense at that middle linebacker position. But some things we haven't talked about as we talk about the Oregon game, some matchups that I'm just absolutely excited about when I think about this particular football game is the matchups between the Oregon secondary and the Auburn wide receiver core. And we could even we can even talk about on another video the vice versa. Auburn secondary against the Oregon receivers. Doing some homework on Oregon, I stumbled upon some very, very talented guys in the secondary for the Oregon Ducks. I mean, these guys are very active. These guys are most are high end, were highly recruited, and very, very talented. And one thing that you can see when you look at these guys on video footage, these guys play with a lot of moxie. They play with a lot of confidence, and you can tell they enjoy playing together up there at Eugene, Oregon, in Autzen Stadium, as they wreak havoc in the Pac-12. A lot of folks would like to say that Oregon should be on most people's lists as a somewhat favorite to win the Pac-12. They got a lot of challenges. The schedule doesn't set up as nicely as I guess they would want. You're talking about some crucial road games down the stretch, but that's for another video. And hell, we might have even talked about it already. Oregon secondary is one of the more active secondaries in the country. You know, you look at these guys and they are what you would want to call ball hawks. They know how to get to the football. They are very aggressive and they tackle extremely well. Another item about these guys that I thoroughly enjoyed watching as I did video footage on each one of these particular players is their ability to cause disruption. That's the theme, in my opinion, when I think about the Oregon secondary, is just absolute disruption. I mean, you look at a guy like, Thomas Graham Jr., a 4-star recruit for Oregon. Man, this guy knows how to find the football. It's almost like he's a receiver on the field. It's like he's a receiver playing cornerback. He has great instincts. He tackles very well. And he surveys the field very well. He reads quarterback eyes very well. He's very well. I don't know this for sure, but with the way he plays, you can tell he's a student of the game. That he actually looks at video footage on the other team, and it's almost like he's in the perfect position to make a lot of plays. You're talking about Thomas Graham Jr. last year with 3 interceptions, 47 solo tackles. So that means he doesn't mind coming up and hitting, as does most of this secondary for Oregon. And when I think about Auburn's wide receiver core, you talk about Seth Williams, Sal Cannella, Anthony Schwartz, Eli Stove, Will Hastings. They're going to have a unique challenge with this very, very athletic secondary. And they're actually too deep in the secondary for Oregon because their bench is pretty good as well. We're not going to get all the way into that today. But these guys are very, very talented and very, very impressive for what I see on video footage. Thomas Graham, my goodness, I mean, he is a very, very thorough athlete in that secondary for the Oregon Ducks. And definitely, you talk about Auburn with coming into this game with 2 inexperienced quarterbacks. They're going to have to make the right reads because this secondary is very, very instinctive in how they play the football game. And definitely going to be looking at a lot of video footage on both Bo Nix and Joey Gatewood to survey the tendencies and put themselves in positions to make some big plays. In a game like Auburn and Oregon, the great equalizer is penalties and turnovers. And this is something that these guys are pretty good at, is creating turnovers. You talk about, like I said before, Thomas Graham with 3 interceptions. Diamador Lenore with 3 interceptions. And my favorite guy in this whole situation is Javon Holland. I'm going to tell you why I like him in just a second. The next guy we're going to talk about is Nick Pickett. Now, he wasn't necessarily the highest recruited out of this group, but he's talented as well, and he's a guy that plays very aggressively as well. He knows how to survey the football field, and he knows how to find his way to the football, and he's very aggressive at the point of attack. He does not mind that contact in the interior part of the defense, which could cause some disruption for the Auburn Tigers, especially early in the football game. So you definitely want to look out for that young man as well. And Diamador Lenore, very, very a 4-star recruit at cornerback. Also, another guy that plays the field very well. He covers very well, and he's very, very good as well as his counterparts at surveying the football field and finding the football. Does very, very good at disrupting routes of the receivers, and that's going to be very, very important for Oregon if they're going to disrupt the Gus Malzahn run offense. They're going to have to break up some passes. They're going to have to create some turnovers. They're going to have to find a way to disrupt the timing of how Gus Malzahn likes to do things. They definitely, if they're going to have some success, looking at Gus Malzahn's offenses of the past, you got to eliminate anything 5 yards or over. Because if you allow a Gus Malzahn run offense to get 5 yards or more on any given play, especially on 1st and 2nd down, you can best believe that tempo is coming, and you can best believe that creating that imbalance is coming. So that's going to be very important for these Oregon Ducks. And really, when you talk about the secondary, as aggressive as these guys are, they're going to definitely have to play very disciplined against Gus Malzahn, because Gus Malzahn really preys on over pursuit, catching you looking in, catching you being too aggressive on certain plays, and next thing you know, you got a big play downfield. That's something that Oregon's going to have to look out for as they try to make this thing happen against Auburn. Also, my favorite guy out of this group, this very talented group of secondary personnel for the Oregon Ducks, hands down, because of the way I like to see the football game played, he's so aggressive. He does not mind coming up to tackle. That's one thing I like about Auburn's secondary coming back, is that these guys don't mind coming up to tackle. You're talking about, Daniel Thomas, Jeremiah Denson. And then you bring some guys off the bench like Jamie and Sherwood and Smoke Monday. They don't mind getting up in there and being active and also applying pressure, that speed pressure on the quarterback. So when I think about the most aggressive guy in this particular defense, this particular secondary, Nick Pickett just jumps off the screen. He comes up and hits. He's very active in those crossing routes, those intermediate routes, and that's going to be very important for Oregon, because Auburn is going to come with all of that, especially with Eli Stove coming back. Eli Stove is very good at those intermediate routes and even those flat routes. So the speed of Oregon's secondary is going to be very important in defending all of this. So, but one guy that I feel Joey Gatewood or Bo Nix really needs to look out for in the secondary, from what I've seen of video footage, is Nick Pickett. I think Nick Pickett is probably one of the premier athletes, or at least I'm just favoring Nick Pickett because he plays very aggressively. He does not mind coming up and making contact. He's probably the hit man out of the group. All right, so guys, I really, just to put, for you guys to try this on for your mental size, I'm going to leave some highlights in the description of these guys from Oregon, the secondary personnel from Oregon, who are very, very talented in my opinion, and they're too deep. Even their bench is pretty good. So you want to look at the matchups between the Oregon secondary and the Auburn wide receivers. Once again, guys, we're talking about college football 24/7, majority about Auburn and the rest of the SEC. And we've done exclusive coverage on the Oregon Ducks, as this is a very important game. First game of the season down in Arlington, Texas. Great recruiting implications. Both of these teams trying to get back to national level of respectability. Once again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart here for the podcast, Auburn Football Sports Talk. On this channel, it's always great to be an Auburn Tiger. As always, guys, War Damn Eagle.